Hey there, hi there. Oh there, everybody. This is Mr. Magic Blocks here, and today we are going to be building an Egyptian scene, a scene from ancient Egypt. And the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to clear out an area, or preferably if you can find a flat area, that would be preferred, it'd be perfect. And you'll want to look for one near a river. It's not necessary, but it does add a lot to the build. And you're going to want to make sure your area is square. So I'm going to add a little bit more there and take care of all that. And now we're going to start on, well, what you'd think of in Egypt. We're going to make a pyramid. So now, the one thing I do want to mention with this is I'm using World Edit. And even if you have creative mode, even if you're in creative, this is still going to take you a while. So I recommend getting the World Edit mod if you're doing this in a single player. And because this would take you a long time to do. And you'll notice I'm going 2 by 2 blocks. I'm going over 2, up 2. And I know pyramids are flat on the sides, but I kind of wanted to keep that blocky feel that Minecraft has. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to clear out a bit more land. You want to have the overall size that you're working in, the area, is going to be about, I would say about twice to maybe 3 times the base of the pyramid. You want it to be sort of flat. There weren't too many hills in Egypt. Or at least, you know, what you see in the movies and what people are used to seeing in movies and TV and things like that. So yes. Now this area I'm working on now is going to be a quarry, which is going to be one of the little elements of this build. It's not just going to be the flat pyramid and a couple other things, you know, just like little things. I'm actually going to, I've actually put a lot of thought into the detail that I'm going to do here. And you can actually see what I'm doing now is another one of those little detail bits that I was talking about, and those are the obelisks. The obelisks are those very tall pillars that you see in ancient Egypt. And I'm going to be adding a gold cone to the top. And that's going to add some texture and some flavor to it. It's going to make it stand out. But I actually made this a little too big. And as you'll see right here, I'll try experimenting a little bit and you'll see it doesn't look too obelisk-esque. You want it to be very skinny and very tall. And you also want to make sure that you add a base. The base is very important because that's what the obelisk is supported on. So, the last thing I want to mention about the obelisk is you want to make sure that they have a very steep angle. So yes, that's what I did there, and I'm going to copy and paste it around the 4 corners of the pyramid. They're going to be kind of the accent pieces of the pyramid, and they're going to kind of be the barriers for where our story is going to take place. So now we're going to clear out the area that's in front of the river. And those bunnies are hopping. That's kind of funny. So we're going to clear that out. And next we are going to move on to the inside of the pyramid. We're going to be making the main chamber room, or the treasure room. And I recommend doing this at the middle of the pyramid. Don't keep it at base level. If you keep it at ground level, it won't add a lot of depth to your building. It'll look a little boring. It will give you a big room to work with, but I think walking up the pyramid and having a room towards the middle of the pyramid adds more depth. So that's just my opinion. It has depth on the outside. And now to add a little bit of depth on the inside, I'm going to bring the floor down 1, and we're also going to be putting in a nether portal. And this is going into the theme of kind of the afterlife and, you know, moving on to the underworld and kind of passing on like the pharaohs did, or like they believe they did. And then I'm just going to add an overhang here for some more depth and to give the build a little texture. And now it is time to go out and actually work on the river, because the Minecraft rivers are okay, the standard rivers, but we want to make this a little bit bigger. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to expand the river so that way we can fit in some more detail to the river, fit some more detail in the river. And yeah, so you see I'm taking out quite a large chunk. I'm actually tripling the size of the river just about. And I'm not going to worry too much about the riverbed. I actually do kind of like that. It textures it a bit. And then we're also going to make some stairs on the pyramid side. Some gradual, very gradual stairs going down to the river. Now, I should have expanded the river both upstream and downstream, but I just wanted to do a segment of this one so we could fit in one of the features that I'll be making a little bit later, which is a boat. And two, I just wanted to show you an example of how to create a segment of an Egyptian river. So you can actually see the pyramid there with the obelisks, and you can actually look straight through the pyramid and you can see the nether portal, which I think looks very nice. And now we're going to detail the river. And how we do this is we're going to add water reeds by using sugarcane. If you've ever seen the movie The Prince of Egypt, that's what I based this look on. I remember they had a lot of reeds in the water. There was one scene. So that's what we're going to be doing. And you can actually place sugarcane in water as long as there's, I believe it's enough light or enough depth, and you have to have sand. So I place a sand block down and put some of the reeds up there. And you want to make sure that the taller reeds are closer to the shoreline and that the shorter reeds are out further towards the river. That'll add depth to the build. And then another thing that you can do is you can add lily pads. So you'll have the taller reeds in the back, shorter reeds, and then lily pads. And that's actually what I'm going to go around and do right now. And I'm going to go around and add some lily pads, and then we're going to texture the other side of the river as well, because if you're on the side of the pyramid and you're looking out, you want to see a completed build. It's going to make it look more full. It's going to make it feel like you're actually living in it versus, okay, this was built. It's going to make it look more natural. I do have trouble with my words sometimes, so I apologize. So yes, and I also do apologize for the daylight changes. I did try to get to those as soon as I saw it was getting dark or stormy or anything like that. So we're just going to go around and finish up those reeds. And now comes the front. We want to add a little bit more, well, not really detail, but we want to add more features to the front so it makes it kind of stand out, and it adds more to the story. It really fills out the exhibit. The build. So now I'm just texturing the path, and I used sand and endstone. There's not a lot of blocks that are tan colored, but I find that the endstone works really nice with desert builds for texturing. So now we're going to get to the fun part of this build, and I'm going to do this with every time-lapse build that I do, and that is the story. Every build should have a story, or else it's just a build. The story really adds a lot to a build if you have, say, an old western shootout, or in this case, we're going to do a Pharaoh burial. So the Pharaoh is going to be, he's going to be put into the pyramid, and there's going to be a grand ceremony and everything. So right now we're placing around the peasants, or the workers, the people who built the pyramid. And I'm not entirely sure if this was accurate, but it's my story. I make the way I want, I guess. And you can do the same with yours. Now, the people on the pyramid are going to be the guards and the shaman, the priests. Those are going to be the ones who handle the ceremony. And as you can see, I'm going around and kind of playing with their uniforms. I decided to give the shaman a more detailed, special uniform, so they would stick out. And all of the guards are getting a very plain white uniform, just with a brown tunic. So they do stand out, but they do also look dull at the same time. So yes, I'm going around and putting in more guards, because if you're going to have all these peasants, you have to make sure there's plenty of guards. And now it is time for the Pharaoh to arrive. So for this, we're going to put in his boat. And the Egyptian boats were very, very long, As you can see, I didn't make it long enough, so I'm going to make that longer there. And they were also very close to the water. They were close to the ground. They also did have this point at the front. It was a very shallow point, but it was very distinct. And you'll see as I play around with the front of the boat there, I kind of texture it so it's a little curved. I play around with the half slabs and the stairs. And you can see right there at the front I made sort of a circle shape. And in the back of the boat are going to be the offerings, or the treasure. And the platform I made in the center of the boat is where the Pharaoh was transported on. And then we're going to put a couple of shaman on the boat, because they were the ones who handled the Pharaoh. And put some linen cloth down there. And now we are going to be making these slabs that the offerings are going to be transported to the pyramid on. And you'll see I used fence gates for that, so they kind of have poles there. And now comes the best part of the build, and that is, or the best part of the story, and that is the Pharaoh. The Pharaoh is making his way to the pyramid, and for this we need a giant slab. And there's the sarcophagus there, and the white quartz represents the linen cloth. Now, I tried to recreate what I did on the offering slabs with the fence gates, because when you're doing a build like this, consistency is important. But then I remembered that when the Egyptians had heavy objects, they would roll them on logs. So I put down some logs instead of the fence gates, and the Pharaoh would be rolled. Again, I don't know if that's accurate or not, but it looks good. And then we put down some guards or some peasants or some special workers on the sides of the logs, and what they would do is they would move the logs as they push the large pallet there to where they needed it to go. So now I'm just going to add some more guards, because again, if you have that many peasants, you got to keep them in line. And then I believe we're going to move over to the quarry there. Just adding a little bit of texture there on the side. And now we're going to put down the logs, the log storage. And this is going to be part of the quarry. They would store their leftover logs, because obviously the pyramid was built. So these are the logs that they would use to transport the stone. And now we're moving over to the quarry. So I put down some piles of sandstone, and I tried to make it look as natural as possible, but also kind of like they were placed there. And now we are going to put down a crane, a manual crane. They had those, back in ancient times. They would use levers and pulleys. And that's how they, got things in and out of, holes. So right now I'm trying to work on a pallet that would be on that part of the crane. And now we're putting down a counterweight. The counterweight is very important, because when you have that much weight on a crane, you want to make sure that it's weighted in the back to balance that, the counterbalance. So you see I'm putting down a lot of anvils there, and there's kind of a crank on the side for that. Okay, so before we go inside the pyramid and detail that, I'm just going to detail the outside, which I'm not going to lie, it's mostly just putting down dead bushes. So I'm going around placing some sand blocks, because the floor of this entire area is sandstone. So I'm doing that. And I also wanted to mention that the obelisks, I used chiseled sandstone, which looks like hieroglyphics, which I think is pretty neat. So now it's just about time to go inside. And what we are going to do inside is we're going to add the treasure of the treasure room. So we're going to add a lot of gold blocks. And if you're doing the treasure room, you want to make sure that you add a lot of gold. And we're going to do some redstone and also some chests as well. So you'll see here I use wooden chests, but in the end result, the end product, I'm going to be using ender chests. And yes, so I'm going to texture this, and then I'm going to show you a time-lapse video of the entire build. So here we go, I'll show you the final product. Enjoy.